Is it counting? Okay. Shh. All right. So, if the negative is outside, it's a reflection over the x. If the negative is inside, it's a reflection over the y. Cassie, what are you doing? Nothing is right. All right, so vertical stretch and compression and amplitude. These are always the same. Cardarius. This is exactly why you don't know how to do this. Because I'm spending you hear every 10th word, and then you're like, I don't get it. Okay, put your phones away. I don't want to see them. Get them off your desk. Don't be answering texts in between my pauses. All right. The vertical stretch and compression and the amplitude. They're always the same except for which function? Tangent. Because the tangent has no amplitude. But it does have a vertical stretch of 2. Okay. So if you wrote -1 for the vertical stretch, that is wrong because the vertical stretch is always positive. The negative is the reflection over the x-axis. So if you put 1, that's okay. 5, 0.5, 4, and 4, and these are all the same. The 1, if you left it blank, that's okay.
What if you put those for the horizontal?
Okay, is the horizontal the same as the vertical? They're not. Vertical goes this way, horizontal goes this way. Absolutely not. No. And I know your teacher taught you better than that because you had her last year too. I know. Okay, so we're back to the period that you all think is so hard. Sine and cosine, it's either 2 pi or pi, and it's either 180 or pi. 360. What? Those are your only choices. So the tangent, this time is x, so it's pi. And what's the number in front of x? Yeah, that was hard.
Well, we didn't know. Well, now we know, though.
But you did 3 worksheets and 3 days of notes. If you didn't know, you weren't paying attention, and I'm going to mark them all wrong, and you're going to fail. Next.
I just forgot to do it whenever we're not in here.
Okay, well, I can tell you right now. I'm recording it. Listen to me yell at you at night, and you'll remember. Okay, so sine. What is the period on sine? 2 pi. And then what do I divide by? 1/4. So what happens with the 1/4? It flips, and it's 8 pi. Yes.
You have the 1/4 in front of the x, right?
Yes. What? So you divide the period by that number. Yes. Always. That's the only rule for period. What's the period for sine? It's not x, ever. 2 pi. Sine is always 2 pi. We're not sinning. None of you are sinning.
Sine and cosine are always 2 pi.
And tangent is always pi.
Hey, Miss, if you fail in class, can you still go to prom? It's okay, bro.
I'd have to have, that's what I was just thinking, we'd have to have our own alternate prom so all of the pre-cal could go. You just have to be not clear. You have to be cleared.
Oh, you have to be clear, okay.
Miss, I'm not always not clear, but I am clear.
Okay, Bruno, can we finish?
So you divide that by 1/4.
Correct. Flip it. Right. So watch. Cosine, it's still 2 pi, right? What's the number in front of the x? 2. So if I divide by 2, what happens?
That's what I put on that one.
I understand the graph.
Yeah, I put that one. Just put one in there.
All right. Again, cosine. So this one is theta, so that's degrees. So it's 360 divided by a half, so it's 720. So sine is 360 divided by 2, 180. And the last one, cosine, is 2 pi divided by 3. Okay, so the horizontal stretch and compression, yeah, this one I also understand why it's such a hard time for all of you. So, because it's the number in front of x. Like it's the number in front of x.
Parentheses and there's not, and then you don't even know if it's like words.
What's the number in front of x? 3.
Wait, hold on, man.
What's the number in front of theta? But it's never, that one's for the reflection. It's always the positive number. What's the number in front of theta? I can see that you're all having a problem with this.
No, do that next one, miss. Does it count for 2?
What's the number in front of x?
We give the concept just now where everything's.
So, miss, for the period, you use the number that's in front of the x. Period too, though, right?
1 4 is 1. Okay.
The number in front of x.
I think I got it now.
3.
That's it.
Can we take it again?
No, we're not taking it again. Now, shh. So listen. All right. So when we're writing this, and we're writing the horizontal compression, right? And I'm writing the number in front of x. All right. But technically, it's a horizontal compression, right? So it's really 1/3. We're just not writing 1/3, right? Right, because that would confuse. I mean, I can't even get you to write the number, let alone to really write what the real horizontal compression is. Okay. Okay, so then some of you, when I was collecting, and I don't even know how this happened, the phase shift and the vertical shift are not the same thing. The phase shift is inside the parenthesis. The vertical shift is outside.
I got the vertical for right.
So if the phase shift is inside the parentheses, that's an X and it's a liar. So some of the mistakes I see, there's no phase shift here, not here, but this is a positive pi over 4, so it's really a negative pi over 4 because our X's lie. There's none here, none here. And then the last one, you have to take the 3 out because the 3 is inside. I am. So it's a negative pi over 3. Okay, bless you. So your vertical shift is outside, right?
I got vertical shift, amplitude, horizontal phase shift, and vertical shift.
Okay. So here's what I want you to, like as much as I'm giving you a bad time about copying the homework and everything, and as much as I'm being crabby, right? I really just want you to pass the test. That is a huge chunk of our time, right? And it's a huge chunk of your grade. So if you have to mess up, let's mess up on the quiz, but now you know how to do it. Because this is there's a chart just like this on your test that you're going to have to do, all right? So I moved the test to Tuesday. I don't like testing on Monday, so we're testing on Tuesday.
Miss, I betted you $100 on Angie, so she got one wrong.
Miss, not gonna lie,
Angie,
this
you got one wrong?
I just
She got one wrong. Angie got one wrong.
3. She said she missed one. You should have bet me. You would have got 100. No, you didn't. No. All right. Yeah, you are. Okay, on your white sheet. Okay. Okay, you're using it right now. Okay, on the back. On the back. All right. The first thing we're going to do, I want to write the critical points for the sign of x. Okay. I already said the back. Okay. So if we're going to write the critical points, so it's all the quadrantals, all the way around. So we start at 0. Okay, whose music can I hear? And if it's yours, Isaac, I swear to God, I will take your phone for... I don't think so. I'm old, but I'm not dumb. Pi over 2. What comes after pi over 2? Pi. After pi? And then? So, the sine and the cosine, if you're going to write the critical points, these are exactly the same. Yeah, this isn't quiz worthy, honey. So where does the sine function start? 0. So then it goes 0, and then it alternates. 1, 0, -1, 0. The cosine doesn't start at 0. It starts at 1, 0, -1, 0, 1.
Honestly, just because it's a pattern, it makes it so much easier.
I'm so glad. So next, I can't tell you the number of people that were telling me how hard it was to graph the tangent function. So I am going to graph the one off your homework so we can understand what exactly would be hard about graphing the tangent function. So first of all, the tangent function, the asymptotes start at negative pi over 4. Or pi over 2, sorry.
How come it's different numbers on a tangent?
Because it's shifted. Because of the asymptotes. So the first thing you fill in at the negative pi over 2 and pi over 2, they're both undefined. That's where your asymptotes are.
Is it always like that?
Always. At negative pi over 4, it's -1, 0, it's 0, and pi over 4, it's 1.
So this is like the parent function?
Yes. So this is what I'm going to graph. Negative tangent of 2x plus 2. So before I do anything, Bruno, what's the negative? Which axis do I reflect over? It's outside. So it affects y, so it's over the x. So it's going to take the function and it's turning it upside down. The 2x, what does that 2 do? It's the number in front of the x. So what does that do to the period? So we're going to divide the period in half. So it used to be pi, and now it's going to be pi over 2. So it got shorter, right? It went from pi to pi over 2. Do you see? Just 1 pi. Yes. It's a horizontal compression. Yes. And then what does the plus 2 do? Moves it up 2. So literally, I'm flipping, shrinking, and moving it up. That's what we're doing, all right? So it's too much to do. So what we're going to do is do each one of these points. And I don't know why you guys like the y better, but we'll start with the y. So the first one I have undefined. If I multiply an undefined by negative, does it do anything?
Negative undefined.
It's still negative undefined. And if I add 2 to undefined, it's still undefined. So the y here is undefined. So next one, the negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1, positive 1 plus 2. So this is 3.
So that is the 2 isn't affected?
It just, no, that's the x. I'm in the y. So 0 times negative 1 is 0 plus 2, 2. 1 times negative 1 plus 2, 1. And undefined times all that stuff is still undefined. So now let's do the x. I'm multiplying, so I'm really going to divide. So negative pi over 2 divided by 2, it's not. Negative pi over 4. Look, negative pi over 2 divided by 2, if I put a 1 under here, you flip it, and you get negative pi over 4. I did flip it. So, negative pi over 4 divided by 2 is negative pi over 8. And for those of you mathematically challenged, the negative pi over 4 is 45 degrees. Negative pi over 8 is half of that. Isaac? What? No. I went to high school in Iowa.
In Iowa?
I did.
Why are you down here?
The teacher is there.
Duh.
No, like, why did you move?
Okay. So 0 divided by 2 is 0. Pi over 4 becomes pi over 8. Pi over 2 becomes pi over 4. So I'm going to take the bottom down here. This is going to be my minus pi over 4, minus pi over 8, 0, pi over 8, and pi over 4.
That's what I never know how to do. I never know how to do.
So there's 5 points, and I just wrote them down right in order. That's a miracle.
Miss, you want to know based on shit?
Do you hear my sarcasm? Can you graph this and talk to me when I'm done?
I'm doing it.
All right. So at negative pi over 4, I'm getting an asymptote. At a positive pi over 4, I'm getting an asymptote. At negative pi over 8, I'm going to 3. 1, 2, 3. At 0, I'm going to 2. At pi over 8, I'm going to 1. And there's your tangent.
But Miss, you make it seem like it's so easy, but
Well, so it's not hard. So do I have to redo this to get my next set? No, you just follow the pattern, right? Okay.